Senator Smith.
Thanks very much. I just want to talk about the disposal of the Australian national flag and the process that was written about in December of last year, an initiative that the government had set up calling for submissions and ideas in regards to how the Australian national flag could be disposed of.
Again, it's Mr Rush.
Oh, man of the moment.
Senator, currently the flag protocol does not provide specific guidance on how to perform a ceremony when retiring a damaged or dilapidated flag.
Well, except that the handbook, the one that I've got here, does say, for example, it may be cut into small, unrecognisable pieces, then disposed of with the normal rubbish collection.
That's correct. It doesn't go to details on how to perform a ceremony, is what I was explaining. There was some correspondence from a member of the public to Senator McGrath, the Assistant Minister to the Prime Minister, which prompted the department to consider whether there should be some protocols around ceremonial destruction.
So it's still acceptable to have a ceremony but cut it into unrecognisable pieces and put it in the rubbish?
There hasn't been any outcome in terms of change to protocols. Our advice has not been changed. The advice we continue to give is that the flag, when it's no longer required, should be disposed of privately and with dignity and respect. The intention behind the advice that you might cut it into small pieces is not that that is on display, but rather that would then prevent a dilapidated flag from being mistakenly flown or used.
So we just turn to the process that was talked about by Fleur Anderson in December. What was the process? And then I'm keen to understand how many submissions were received, what types of ideas might have been articulated in those submissions, and when we might be able to expect some clearer advice around what might be a more suitable way to hold a ceremony and ultimately dispose of the national flag.
So the department drafted a consultation paper which was published and distributed to some organisations, the Australian National Flag Associations of both New South Wales and Queensland, which are the two major branches, the RSL National Executive, the Australian Primary Principals Association, the Australian Secondary Principals Association, Scouts Australia and Girl Guides Australia. Senator McGrath also issued a media release inviting views from others in the community.
I posted it on Facebook.
I can't recall the details of Senator McGrath's social media activities.
I think Senator Smith encouraged people on his own Facebook page.
Submissions closed on the 28th of February this year.
Yep.
There were 23 submissions received, and the department has briefed Senator McGrath in relation to those submissions.
It's on my desk at the moment. I'm fiddling with the end product as such.
So are you at liberty, without identifying who might have made which proposition, what types of propositions might have been put forward?
Certainly. Look, my recollection, Senator, is that the most submissions supported the idea that some kind of private ceremony might be helpful, or some kind of protocol for a private ceremony to assist people. So a kind of an order of ceremony and how you might do it and so on. And there were various suggestions made in that context as to various elements of those of such a ceremony. But they all had in common, I think, that it would be appropriate to if the decision is made to dispose of the flag, because there might be some. Certainly, the consultation process identified some situations where people would actually like to retain a flag for historical or sentimental reasons. But in some circumstances where the flag is being replaced by a new one, rather than allowing the damaged or dilapidated flag to hang around in the back of the cupboard, in order to provide a dignified exit, various suggestions were made about elements of that, for instance, displaying the flag, telling stories about how that flag has been used in the past, and so on.
So are we able to put the issue in some context? How many national flags are issued annually?
I'll have to take that on notice.
I don't know the answer to that. Certainly the
Or issued as opposed to purchased. So, for example,
Yeah.
as a federal parliamentarian, flags are made available to me, so issued to me.
Yeah.
Hard to track the number of Australians that might be out buying Australian flags from their local merchant. but-
we could certainly take that on notice. We would have to source that information from the Department of Finance, who administer the Constituents Request Program, through which senators and members can request flags for constituents.
So in the parliamentary precinct then, how are the Australian national flags disposed of?
You would have to ask the Department of Parliamentary Services. I'm not aware.
Or how are they disposed of outside the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet?
I'm afraid I don't know how our department disposes of our old flags either. I'd need to speak to my colleagues in the corporate area.
Because that would set a standard, I'd suspect.
Beg your pardon, sir?
That would set a standard, I would suspect.
I think I could trust that they were
Respectfully.
respectfully.
So the extension then is, I was going to ask how many are disposed of each year, but we wouldn't know that necessarily. But you might inquire what are the protocols around the disposal of Australian national flags that are put up in front of those prime departments across the Commonwealth here in the parliamentary precinct. I just wanted, in the reporting, it mentioned that a suggested ceremony might involve a master of ceremonies, an acknowledgement to country, for etc., etc. Would there be an expectation that in establishing a protocol around the disposal of the national flag, someone would have to be paid or should not be paid for providing a welcome to country?
I don't think that we would
Stipulated.
take it upon ourselves to provide advice of that kind.
Okay. And were any submissions received by state governments, state or territory governments?
No, I don't believe we received any submissions from state governments or territory governments.
Are you at liberty to share with us the names at the moment of those 23 people or organisations that made submissions?
I don't have the names with me, and the consultation process didn't envisage publication of submissions.
That's right, yeah.
So we would have to take into account the privacy considerations of the contributors.
Okay. And so in coming to a view and providing some advice to the government, did you look at how national flags are disposed in other countries?
We did look at the practice in some other countries, yes.
Okay. And was there a practice that was most suited to Australian characteristics or Australian circumstances?
No, I think that the practices in similar countries, Western countries with similar traditions, shall we say, were most informative. But I don't think that and I wouldn't wish to preempt the outcome of Senator McGrath's consideration.
I trust Senator McGrath's great passion for the national flag to come at the right decision. Absolutely.
You'll be happy with the decision.
Where's your lapel pin, Senator McGrath?
It's on my suit coat, and because I'm a sloppy dresser, I've left my suit coat back in the office, which I apologise.
I just want to get that on the record.
Okay, right.
The sloppy dresser.
I consider myself
Carry on.
admonished.
Well, that's not fair, Senator McGrath, because before we came back, you said it was because you're a Queenslander you don't wear a coat.
There's that too, actually.
No, but
on James Day, but anyway,
if I could proffer this, possible remedy, if there was a repository that citizens or the Department of Prime Minister or Cabinet or Senator Smith or Senator Patterson could forward flags that were no longer needed or in use, and that they or that repository could then take responsibility for disposing of the national flag in a respectful way, I think that would go a great way in building public confidence. Because what struck me about news about the inquiry, as worthy as it was that many people were surprised that there wasn't a more clearer established protocol, and on the surface of it, being able to dispose of the national flag in small pieces in a rubbish bin, I understand your point, it becomes unrecognisable, was taken as did come as a surprise to people. just for the public record, every flag that flies at my electorate office, when it comes down, it goes into an envelope and it goes into a cupboard. And then when I cease to be a senator, I'm not going to know what to do with it, but Senator Sewell will be interested to know that the flag that was at Senator Adams' office after she passed away, I pulled it down and gave it to her family, and they still have it. So I think that for many people, the national flag is it's a constant in their public duties. So anything that can be done to make sure it's disposed of in a totally respectful manner would be much appreciated. So I'm very excited about it, Senator McGrath. I look forward to hearing the results.